All right. All right, man. We're live. How are you?
Doing great.
Good.
Full day. Another one less day of looking at winter with this nice, beautiful, warm weather.
I know we've gotten really lucky here with this weather. So, all right. Well, people are going to start tuning in here, but you and I have been talking a lot about value and value prop and what we think some of the value is. And being a realtor, it's more than just putting, finding a buyer, finding a seller. There's a lot of things that go into this, right?
Yep.
And one of the things that we run into are problems, right? Whether they be after a closing, on closing day, when buyers or sellers are moving in or moving out. And I was actually over on the lakeshore for a coffee hour with Doug Hale and the team over there on the lakeshore. And this came up where agents are finding themselves more and more where their buyers are taking possession of a house and all of a sudden, oops, there's something missing, or they're fighting over who's going to pay to have the sprinklers winterized, or who's going to do whatever it might be, right? Who's going to winterize the pool, buyer or seller, right? There's all these little points of bickering. And this kind of brought up that age-old conversation that we talk about here, Dad, when we talk to a realtor who's upset about something like this, like carpeting being dirty when their clients moved in. And I'll give you an example. So I got a call from a realtor from the lakeshore, not a five-star realtor, who was upset about something. And so she got a hold of me and she said, the sellers of this house that you guys had listed left a desk behind. And I was like, oh, okay. And she's like, and we had to pay to have that desk removed. And I was like, right, okay. And she's like, and I'm looking for you guys to write me a check for $40 to reimburse me. And I've been trying to get you guys to pay me for 3 months to get you guys to pay me $40 to get this. We had to pay to get this desk removed. And I'm talking to a realtor on the lakeshore. I'm thinking to myself, like, 3 months you've been working at this to get this $40 bill covered by five-star? And it was mind blowing to me. So I told her, I was like, look, I'm gonna write you a check for $40. Okay, so just right off the bat, I'm gonna make you happy. I'm gonna give you $40. But I actually took the time to talk to her about, like, look, this was an opportunity for you to put a nice little bow on this for your sellers. You should have shown up, written the check for that $40, taken care of it, got it done, and not had to have this kind of a battle over it. So what are your thoughts on all this, Greg, when we get into these moments where we're all going to have them, where there's a missing dryer, there's a missing basketball hoop, there's a missing shed? What do you do?
Well, I think I've seen every one of those things in my career.
Yeah.
And the first thing that I want to make sure that our agents understand exactly what they're dealing with and what's going on, and what are the dynamics that are in play here. And so as I look at these scenarios, they all kind of blend into the same thing. But the first question that every agent has to ask themselves, if you're working with a buyer, your buyer moves in and they call you and say, something's missing. They left debris, they left garbage, they messed this up, they broke that.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that you are going to hold the listing agent accountable is really kind of insanity. It's not the listing agent's job. The listing agent did their job. They listed the property. They can't control what their seller does. Mm-hmm. They could make a phone call and just find out, do they intend to do anything, or are they just saying, see ya, and in effect saying, tough luck, your program, your job. And but as an agent, I think, Paul, what you were saying is that when you have a perfect deal, it's just expected. So and you don't get any credit.
Well, here's the way I kind of look at these moments, right? So back when I was in marketing school, when I was in college and I was taking my marketing classes, which was one of my majors in school, there were these concepts about how you discuss how, like, some like for example, Amazon or some of these companies have like a guarantee return policy, no questions asked. It shows up, clearly it's been worn, clearly it's been walked in, they're taking it back, no questions asked, right? And so they talk about, and there's other examples about how let's say you're doing something and something goes terribly wrong and you have to call up the company to explain what's gone wrong. How that company handles that problem will, if they handle it really well or really bad, you're 10 times as likely to share the good or the bad experience that you had just now on how they resolved that problem than you would be if it was a flawless experience. So you go to Southwest Airlines right now and you buy a ticket, it's flawless, everything goes perfectly well. You're probably not going to go tell every single one of your friends about this amazingly flawless experience you had with Southwest. You got online, you bought tickets, they came just like they said they would, and the plane got you there. You're not going to go and talk about this. But let's say Southwest did something wrong or they overbooked a flight or something, and they somehow managed to get you a first class seat or front row seat on a flight that was within 5 minutes of your current departure, and they somehow, or they bought you a ticket to another airline but got you there at the same exact time. And this is what that airline did. You're going to tell all of your friends and family, like, you're not going to believe this total screw up we had today. And this company did this amazing thing for me. So what they're saying is, like, the marketing concept behind here is, like, there are companies that build their brand based upon how they handle problems. Because problems are a great way to differentiate yourself from your competition.
Right. And every time you as an agent take one of those problems away and handle it, you become a much needed, a much referred person.
It becomes noteworthy. It becomes memorable. It becomes something you want to share.
So what I've observed over the years is that I've gone into situations where I've listened to agents talking over a cup of coffee, and one is talking about the check they just had to write to fix something. The other agent is saying, I've never paid out a dime on any of these things ever in my life. And here's what I've learned is every time I hear that from an agent, if I'm able to get into their income and their success, almost always that agent has not really done that much in life and has done very less transactions. And so they're limited. So you're limited by your inability to bring out your checkbook and solve the problem quickly. And I think I've said this before in other sessions that if you delay and you belabor and you mourn and you grieve and you make this difficult, the longer you drag it out, the less credit you get, even if you end up doing the right thing in the end. So the credit happens by doing it early, often, fast. So here's another couple of scenarios I wanted to go over. We have seen multiple times where sellers have left debris. I mean, sometimes like a $500 or two $500 dumpsters worth of stuff.
Oh yeah.
And the sellers are gone. You call the other listing agent. The other listing agent says, I don't know where they are. I don't have any control over them.
They're not returning my calls. They're gone.
They were told they need to take care of it. And so here you are, you've got an unhappy buyer. You just worked your tail off to make sure this buyer was happy. You've jumped through hoops. You've done everything because you wanted to have these clients for life. Well, you really don't have many options at this moment, in my humble opinion. You need to get that. Not only do you need to give them the money, you need to call the dumpster. You need to get it out there. You say, I'm going to take care of this. I'm going to handle it. I've got this. Don't worry. I'll have it there.
Here's something to think about too. When you, I'm going to just kind of piggyback on what you're saying. So if it takes you a week to come to that conclusion that's what you should do, if it takes you 3 days to come to the conclusion that you should write that check and pay for that dumpster, then you've already lost.
Right.
You have to solve that problem immediately. Like you might be thinking, oh my gosh, but I was going to get a new TV, or I was going to do this, I was getting new windows and all these things that you were going to do with your commission just now.
Yep.
But if you don't resolve that problem this quickly without hesitation, then you're losing, because now you're leaving your clients for the next 3 days wondering if they're going to get this problem resolved. And when people are left wondering, they don't come to the greatest conclusions.
So I want to give another scenario.
Okay.
And again, these things, you can use these in multiple variations, but think about, you've been out with a buyer, you've been working with them for a month, and you get Everything's going along fine. All of a sudden, there's a negotiation that takes place. You cannot bring the two parties together. You're $1,000 off. You're looking at a $9,000 commission. So I would encourage agents to now look at this as a business scenario, and as a business scenario versus an emotional scenario. Business-wise, it's really clear. You pay the $1,000 and you get the job done and you get your $8,000 commission, right? But again, there are people that believe, hey, I'm right. I didn't do anything wrong. And you know what? You are right. But what I've learned in this business is that just because you're right doesn't mean you're going to win. What's that saying?
I've seen a lot of people that were right lose.
Right. So you can lose by being right.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not paying attention, again, I look at all these scenarios is that I'm not working with that person for this one deal. I'm working with that person because I'm hoping that they can give me a couple of leads a year for the next 20 years.
Absolutely.
So why would I fret over $500 or $1,000?
Think about this. For those of you kind of going, I don't know if I really want to write checks for $500 or $1,000. I want you to think about something. We sometimes talk about this too, where we go, all right, so think about this. You are running a business, right? And you have the ability to earn a lot of income selling houses and earning commissions. You can work, you're delivering service. You are a company. So, but think about this though. What's your overhead? Do you have to stock a grocery store, a convenience store? Do you have to fill up shelves full of products? No, you have almost, if you think about what your overhead actually is to open this business, you're not carrying tons and tons and tons of stock where you're spending thousands upon thousands of dollars to fill the shelves, right? So you don't have a ton of overhead. And I think a lot of times, if you think about how much money people actually spend on marketing, it's also pretty low in terms of real dollars spent compared to the money that people are earning. So think about the $200 or the $500 that you're going to spend on this person to make that person happy. That is like probably the most effective use of $500 you'll ever spend, because that person is going to go tell everyone they know that you went above and beyond. You solved the problem you didn't have to solve.
Right. You also, in this same scenario where you could fix something that would help put the deal together, if you have to put these people back out on the street, start looking again, you just put everything at risk because they could find a for sale by owner.
What's your time worth, right?
They could hook up with a builder. The payday is never guaranteed once you let that deal slide for the 500. And to me, when you look at what you're trying to earn per hour, to put somebody back in the car again, so to speak, is a lose proposition as a business person. As a business person, it makes absolute sense to get over your right to be right and to solve the deal. The other thing I want to talk about was, and I'm assuming that a lot of people know this, but again, I don't want to assume, but I always looked at every scenario that I would negotiate as far as I could get. And then if I got blocked, the last piece that I would try is I looked at something and I kind of call it the power of four. And I've always felt there was typically four people involved that had skin in the game here. Myself, the other agent working on the other side, the buyer and the seller. And if there's $1,000 deal, well, it's a whole lot more palatable if everybody kicked in $250 than it is if one party has to pay $1,000. And so I would almost always go down that road next. And that is before I'm going to maybe even throw the dollars on the table. But this is all happening quickly. This is not like over days, because
this has to happen fast.
This could all happen within an hour. And so anyway, the power of four. And then the other thing that I assume that lots of people know, but I don't want to pass over it again, but I've always felt that I could get clients to move about twice. Matter of fact, the majority of people do not like negotiations. They despise negotiations. There's only a few select people that really love getting into a negotiation. The majority of people just want to get the job done. And so if you push them to get them, you go back to them, you counter them, they come back, and you go back and counter them one more time, that's probably the last move you're going to get from them, because after 2 times, most people put their feet in cement, what we call it, the principle of it all. And you're not going to get much movement after that.
Oh yeah,
So
it turns into principle at that point.
right. And principle then means that there's, again, it's nothing about money again. This is about the principle. So anyway, I think that in the end here, Paul, time is money.
I think we've made our point. I think we've made the point pretty clear that like what we see is we see a lot of these top realtors are very quick to solve these problems. And you know, I mean, we can give you example after example, and I've experienced it personally. Greg, you've experienced it personally selling houses. The number of washing machines, dishwashers, refrigerators that we've had to buy, sellers who swap the appliances the day before the closing and leave there's old almond colored fridge behind and took the stainless steel with them. You know, we see weird things like this. And, you know, sometimes we're able to resolve it and get it back from the seller or get it back from the other agent where we get everybody involved. But, you know, there are some times where you're in a standstill and it's in your interest to leave those people with a great experience and a great taste in their mouth, so they take it forward and want to tell everyone they know that you're a great realtor. That's the ultimate thing we're asking you to think about right now.
And I want to come back and hit it one more time, that it is unrealistic to expect the listing agent to be responsible for whatever a seller does, just as it'd be unrealistic to expect the buyer's agent to be responsible when a buyer decides to change their mind. It's not the agent's fault. So what I want to do is encourage everybody, give the other agent the benefit of the doubt. Don't assume that they're the problem. Because if you go after that other agent, and you do or say things that you're going to regret someday, it's going to hurt you, because you're going to run into that agent again. And they will remember that. And so I always found that be gracious, be kind, be firm, make your point, make your case, but don't get into an emotional, badgering, belittling conversation with another agent because you believe that they're not doing something that you want them to do. There's another person involved, and it's called the client. And they're supposed to represent their client. Matter of fact, even if they disagree with their client, they're not supposed to come and tell you they disagree with their client. They're representing that client. And so if you are coming at me and attacking me, I'm not going to tell you that, hey, I agree with you. My client's a jerk. My client's an idiot. They don't know what they're doing. No, I'm going to defend my client, and I'm going to defend what they've asked me to do. So that's how this business is supposed to work. But I do realize that I think realtors many times personalize this, and they get themselves in a jam because they personalize things. So with that, Paul,
with that being said, it's a really simple conversation we're having. Think about the long term. Think about your clients. What would you want someone to do for you if you were that seller or that buyer and this happened to you? How would you want your representative to handle it? And you know what, guys? It's never fun. It's never fun writing a check, but it's worth it in the long run. So we encourage you guys to find ways to help and solve problems. Look, those are opportunities, guys, to grow your business. That's what I want to say.
Yep. So,
all right. Anything else?
Thank you.
All right. Well, catch you later. See you guys.